Thanks for having me here. I'm from Quincy, Washington. Anyone from there? All right, good. I got horses over there in Quincy. First time I fell off a horse, my dad said, "Son, you fall off a horse, you got to get right back on or you'll always believe that thing can throw you." And then 20th time I fell off, he said, "Sometimes you got to just get a different horse." We had dogs. One time my dog was hit by a truck. This farmer goes, "Here, son, get yourself a new pet." Gave me $20. So we got a new dog at the pound. The next day that dog was hit by a truck. This farmer goes, "Here, son, get yourself a new pet." Gave me $30. So we got a new dog at the pound. The next day that dog was kind of lazy, just laid around the lawn. I kind of had to throw him in a passing vehicle. That was officially my second joke. Thanks. Cowboy poetry is an old tradition. It's a tradition among cowboys to do cowboy poetry. And the truth is I'm actually more of a farmer these days, but nobody's hiring farmer poets, so forget it. Do a poem for you. This poem, I just got this published in a book by Gibbs Smith. And I saw this giant 4-point buck one time. I wrote a poem about this giant 4-point buck. I've entitled this poem, "A Giant 4-Point Buck." In a meadow next to a graveled road on game department land, there stood a giant 4-point buck right in the palm of my hand. I had my rifle loaded and the animal in my sights when a station wagon drove up to me, a man, his kids, and wife. This family started pointing and taking pictures too. I put the rifle in my truck. What else was I to do? The man said to me, "What you've just done was a kind and gentle act." I said, "My house is down the road. I guess I'll just go back." That station wagon drove by my place that afternoon at 3. I smiled and waved at the family. They smiled and waved at me. But I'm not too proud of how I cussed in the front yard where I stood when I saw my giant 4-point buck tied down to the auto's hood. That's it. Well, I'm here to give you a little education about cowboy poetry. First off, you might notice that cowboy poetry is different than other poetry because the main difference is that cowboy poetry rhymes. That's where two words sound like each other. It's a concept thing, you know. The guys who load hay trucks out in the Columbia River Basin, they call these guys boomers. They call them boomers because they use boom loaders. And then they also have hay hooks, but it didn't seem right to call them hookers. Here's a poem about those guys. When there's people who raise cattle, you need people who raise hay, where there's boomers bucking bales almost every single day. Now the people who raise cattle always need a horse or two, so to break the bucking broncs, you could use a buckaroo. Breaking bucking broncs is better if you seem to have the knack. Bucking bales as a boomer is a way to break your back. At a rodeo, a buckaroo can ride a bucking bronc and win himself a shiny silver buckle. But if a boomer got a buckle just for bucking bales, it'd really make a bale boomer chuckle. If a buckaroo wore his big buckle while he's busy breaking bucking broncs, you'd better bet he'd get his bladder broken. And if a bale boomer broke his back from bucking bales, he would feel his bad back buckle. I'm not joking. I've seen a buckaroo bail off the bucking bronc he's breaking. I've seen a bale boomer break the bale that he's bucking. When that happens, buckaroos go boom and boomers pass the buck for the mess they're making. That's my ballad of the buckaroos who break the bucking broncs and the boomers who buck bales for your beefsteaks. I hope you liked it, but if buckaroos and boomers bore you, all that I can say is, brother, them's the breaks. I was going to play a song. I'll play a song. I don't really play this. I just carry it around to give me something to do with my hands. When I was a kid, Mom used to make the relatives sit and listen to me play the banjo, and then we would untie him and feed him dinner. Okay. Yeah, let's see. I'll play a song. Going down that road feeling bad. I wrote this poem on the idea of the disappearing West. It's kind of a concept thing, you know, the concept of the disappearing West. I've entitled this poem, The Disappearing West. You're catching on, that's good. Took them 6 poems up in Great Falls last week. The West is disappearing, not so near as once it was. But if you think the West is far away, I was at a rodeo in Northern California, and the West was awful close to me that day. I met an older fellow with a weathered-looking face, his knees bowed out the way old bowed knees will. He told me that his father, way back when, had shaken hands with the man who we recall as Buffalo Bill. And I thought in this a moment that I'm looking in the eyes of the son of him who looked into the eyes of Bill Cody, and Buffalo Bill Cody once looked in the eyes of him who had a son who's looking back at me. Then I reached out to the man. I asked him, could I shake the hand of the son of the man who shook the hand of Buffalo Bill one day, and as he shook hands with me, I felt the West was very near, the West which once I thought was far away. So if you're thinking that the West is only something distant, you can shake my hand, and my friend, if you will, you can say you shook the hand of the man who shook the hand of the son of the man who shook the hand of Buffalo Bill. There's more. The West is all around us, and we're in the West, and what is West is working, and it's welling up in me. I am the West, and when you shake my hand, you shake the hand of the West, and what is West is shaking hands for you to see. If the West is what you're wanting, anyone around is welcome. Walk away from all your worries. Why, the West is what you make it. Wander free as wildlife in a wide and wild wasteland. Welcome to the West, and if you want to, take my hand and shake it. But wait, if all the West you're watching isn't what you're wanting, you don't have to shake my hand for all I care. You can wave a little wave from a little ways away, or wink a wicked wink from anywhere. But if you're thinking that the West is only something distant, you can shake my hand, and my friend, if you will, you can say you shook the hand of the man who shook the hand of the son of the man who shook the hand of Buffalo Bill, and that's it. Let's see what happened was, I started doing cowboy poetry a while back, and I wrote it, most of what I wrote in the beginning was just rhyming jokes, made people laugh. Then a lot of the other cowboy poets started reciting the stuff I was writing, and that meant if I went into the town, they were saying it's a great honor for them to do this, but when I went into the town where I've never been before, these guys have all heard my rhyming jokes already. That was no good, so I started writing alliteration, and I said, if they're going to memorize them, they're going to work for it. So I like doing that kind of stuff, but I have a lot of rhyming jokes. I actually said I'm from Quincy, but my wife didn't like living on the farm with me going around touring so much, so I said, well, we can live anywhere you want. And she moved me to this town called Chinook at the mouth of the Columbia River, right where the river goes into the ocean. And cowboys are different, actually, in Chinook than they are in the rest of the country, because the main thing is those other guys have cattle. We have salmon. If you ever try branding a salmon, you might as well go ahead and eat it, because it's cooked. I'll do another old rhyming joke. This one's an old one, though I didn't write this. This was published in the year 1902. It was written by a guy in Oregon who called himself Uncle Jim, the Sage of Waha. His name was Jim Stacy, and the name of this poem is Why I Did Not Smoke. By coach we rode one summer's day, on stony road, uphill and down, through country wild, 10 miles, they say, from Station Hope to Wapie Town. With comrades 2, myself made 3, on hunting bent, each had a gun. We started out the woods to shoot some game and have some fun. The driver sat upon the seat with reins in hand, the whip did crack, when Lady Tall, well-clad and neat, leaped into coach with her gripsack. Now always I had bashful been in presence of a lady fair. She took her seat with me, so then with her my seat I had to share. Tobacco pipe I never smoked, but always smoked cigar quite strong. I had but one, it was no joke. To light it then my heart did long. The question then, how could I smoke in presence of a lady fair? The odor might her wrath provoke, and music then would fill the air. To ride 10 miles without a light for my cigar? Oh, sorry man. Why not obtain consent polite from Lady Fair, my thoughts thus ran. But should she then consent refuse, what sorry plight would fall my fate? My comrades then would me abuse with jests at moon and evening late. 4 miles went by, 6 more to go, desire to smoke still stronger grew. It's sink or swim, the truth I'll know, I said, I'll ask the lady true. With hat in hand, I rose before the lady fair with blushing cheek. I bowed my head, cast eyes to floor. With trembling voice I then did speak. Said I, Madame, your pardon asked, a favor I would long to broach. I wish to know if it's a task to smoke allow within the coach. Cigar in hand, I held it true toward Lady Fair. She gave me smiles. She took it, sir, and said, thank you, and smoked herself the last 6 miles. On tablets then of memory dear, a warning strong I there did write. If leave to smoke you crave in fear, keep cigar then well out of sight. That's Why I Did Not Smoke by Uncle Jim Stacy, 1902. What else was I going to do? I'll do some other poems. If I seem awkward at all up here, it's because I'm still recovering from a bad accident. I was hit by a drunk driver. I was sitting next to him in the car. I said, you're drunk. He went, shut up, and he hit me. Ran off into the ditch. I woke up in the hospital strapped to this heart monitor. It's going, beep, 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 beep. All of a sudden it goes, eee. I yelled out, nurse, nurse. She comes in and goes, oh, that machine does that, and hits it on the side. Now, it was terrible. Every time the machine screwed up when I had visitors, they'd start pounding on my chest. One time the nurse hit my chest, we got Gilligan's Island on the screen. I need some water. I saw this vegetarian lady one time. I wrote a poem about this vegetarian lady. I've entitled this poem, All right, we're all in together here. How does this go? I was working at a barbecue put on by the Rotarians. I met this short-haired woman who said she's a vegetarian. That was a tough one. It was really the Shriners. She said she doesn't eat red meat. It's not the thing to do. So I cooked her up a sirloin steak, but first I dyed it blue. She told me Mother Nature doesn't want us eating beef. I asked her, why did nature give us carnivorous teeth? She told me that hamburger puts cholesterol in your veins. I said I thought her salad gave her lettuce in her brain. She said it wasn't right for us to have dumb animals butchered. I told her that we can't afford to have the dumb ones tutored. Tutored. It was for a thing called animal rights, of which this woman boasted, so I said, read this animal his rights before I have him roasted. When going to a restaurant, she avoids the steak fillets. She'd rather have a salad bar where she can slowly graze. Sometimes she looks into the sky and silently goes, moo. I guess if I was vegetarian, I'd do that too, wouldn't you? I think I was going to play a song at this point in my show. I told you I'm more of a farmer than a cowboy nowadays because I'm raising hay and grain for feedlots and dairies. Well, that's what I was doing, and then I found out about this government program I could put my farm in. It's kind of given me time to go around and recite poetry to people. So I got all this, hey, what happened? If you don't like it, just let me know. There goes that beautiful video I could have had out of this thing. Okay, a moment of silence. I'm back now. Thank you for that brief intermission. I got this wheat harvester that's always breaking down. I wrote a poem about this wheat harvester. I've entitled this poem. I almost forgot. When the weather's dry and people die of sunstroke from the heat, that's the time to go outside and harvest all your wheat. That would have been a good laugh if I wouldn't have messed it up. You get inside this big machine out baking in the sun and run a diesel engine which can raise the temperature some. It wouldn't be so bad if this was all you would endure, but you can bet the combine will break down on you for sure. Deep inside the harvester, the part that's out of whack can only be removed if you lay face down on your back. Face down on your back. While prying out the broken part, you'll get your finger lanced, and 40 pounds of wheat chaff will be pouring down your pants. While laying in the harvester, you'll read the owner's manual. It says to get the part, the whole combine must be dismantled. You come to learn the part that gave you trouble so immense is something small and simple with a price of 60 cents. The part shop guy will tell you, we don't have that there part, shucks. It comes attached to something else that costs 500 bucks. He says a rebuilt part is cheaper, that could fill your need, and then he gets an evil grin and says, but it's not guaranteed. The combine has so many parts you feel kind of hexed. If they could talk, they all would say, me next, me next, me next. Then we got tractors, you know. I wrote a poem about a tractor. I haven't thought up a title for it yet. Now I can't remember the poem. Yeah, okay, the tractor. Driving a tractor is tedious work, as tough as you're likely to have, because sometimes you spend 12 hours a day in that air-conditioned cab. And sometimes the weather gets really rough and the stormy north winds blow and it messes up the reception on the FM stereo. 12 hours in a tractor can be mighty tough to hack because the icebox in the tractor cab can only hold 1 6-pack. John Deere tractor costs thousands of bucks, but the reason it's worth all of that is because when you buy a new tractor, they throw in a free John Deere hat. That's as good as that gets. Financially, farming's been kind of tough, but we got more efficient this way. We decided to sell off our cattle, and we spend all our time raising hay. We got all this hay, and it's funny the way that your life takes these courses, because we started making more money selling hay to you guys who have horses. Then a government agency showed us how we could run things more efficiently if we put the farm in a subsidy program and leave it alone completely. I'm finding the less that we do around here, the more that they're willing to pay. And farming gets more efficient if we sit and do nothing all day. That's the end of my farm poems. I like listening to comedians. My favorite comedian is Paul Harvey. He's pretty good. He's kind of like a mild-mannered Rush Limbaugh is what he is. There's a true story. Well, it's true because Paul said it was true. Guy goes into a 7-Eleven in Texas, lays a 20 on the counter, says, give me change. The man opens the cash register. The guy pulls a gun, says, just give me everything. So the guy gives him everything. $15. The man runs out, leaves a 20 on the counter. Good day? I'm going to do a serious poem. I don't know. I'll do this. This is a long poem. I haven't done this too many times. This may be my last time. This rancher never saw the furniture he told me of, the piano his great-grandmother had played. And he never saw the maple clock that stood up 6 feet high his paternal great-great-grandfather had made. In fact, 100 years had passed since members of his family heard the music of the old piano play, and as many years had come and gone by since his great-grandparents put the clock aside before they walked away. It was in the 1860s that a young determined couple in a wagon train was headed for the west. They'd loaded up the box on the Conestoga heavy, and the oxen fell behind for need of rest. The scouts who led the train said they'd better shed some weight because the wagon was too heavy for the stock, but the husband and the wife argued fiercely and debated of the need of a piano and a clock. Those poor oxen pulled the weight across the Rocky Mountain passes. They were somewhere down in southern Idaho when their big old oxen shoulders and their gentle oxen hearts gave it up, and that's as far as they could go. Those ox were skin and bone where they once were fat with tallow. To demand much more of them would be unkind, and the husband knew he'd have to get some weight off of the wagon. The piano he'd just have to leave behind. How his wife cried, and she pleaded for that precious old piano as he and a helper moved it to the sage. They were careful as they carried it out of the covered wagon. Then her tears were turned into a sudden rage. She cursed the trip that took her from her home and from her parents, and she cursed the trail and cursed the ox as well. And the husband, in his anger, threw the clock out from them while also yelling, clock and piano both may go to hell. And the shattering of glass as the clock struck the piano and the clash of landing on piano keys and the ringing of the chimes one more time across the prairie, fading silently into the gentle breeze. Say goodbye and say good riddance and say let the weather take 'em, let 'em bleach and warp from sun and snow and rain. May domestic things decay without the shelter of a home, going back into the earth from whence they came. As he led the team of oxen, he could hear his wife was crying. He let out a couple tears himself, all right, and the clock and the piano looked so lonesome in the sagebrush, like two dogs who'd been put outside for the night. For years she would remind him of the clock and the piano, how he owed her for the loss they had incurred, and he'd growl he never should have tried to pack those heavy objects, and he didn't want to hear another word. But as years went by, they spoke of both the clock and the piano with a strange affection for the trip they made, how they gave them to the desert in exchange to get a homestead, as if Mother Nature offered them a trade. So it never was forgotten. And I sat there having coffee on a ranch which long ago was dearly bought. And I heard that little story of a rancher's great-grandparents and the loss of a piano and a clock. There you go. Now I'll try to play a song, or maybe just a few licks here. This song before. You know that when I finished this song, there would have been really big applause if I wouldn't have messed the whole thing up. I take about the middle 10 or 15 minutes of my act to try out a bunch of stuff that I'm still breaking in, and that song is one of them, and I broke it really bad, too. I've been getting into this thing of different styles of poetry, and I would like to do one for you that is a little different than what I've been doing. If you listen really close, you can hear the aerobics class in back, but when we open that curtain, I don't know what we'd see. Tradition in our family goes way back 4 generations, 3 traditions. It was work, and it was hope, and it was always disappointment. Working hours, hoping next year life would be a little better. And we gave the land a name we call the farmland next year country. We love the hours before the sun is up in early morning mud and irrigation. Father's back is sore from lifting and his knees all worn and tired. Irrigation water in his boots and in his socks, and irrigation water in his pant legs and his shirt sleeves in the cold of early morning. Love the taste of it around us. Calves are playing in the pasture, and the shadows from the rising sun will show the corn is pushing up and peeking out. The pinto beans are pushing up, and the alfalfa is greening up. The winter wheat is waking up, and there's a promise and a hope in all the work that may the prices all be up, and may the yields all be up. We come in for breakfast. Mom has eggs and bacon, toast and fried potatoes waiting. Dad is eating with a magazine in front of him and aching in his shoulders and the aching in his hands. Mud across the floor for Mom before we go. My dad had dreams when he was younger of a ranch with Uncle Roy. Uncle Roy who lost his son and lost his own dreams when that happened. Mom had dreams she never told us. She put them off till next year, always next year in this country. This is next year country here. And it was work, and it was hope, and it was always disappointment. I don't care that I don't have a lot of education, because I love the hours before the sun is up and early morning mud and irrigation with my back all sore from lifting, my knees all worn and tired. Irrigation water in my boots and in my socks, and irrigation water in my pant legs and my shirt sleeves in the cold of early morning. Love the taste of it around us. We had dreams once of a good year. May the prices and the yields both be up for once together. Simple dreaming when I asked my dad, where did we get that saying, next year country? He told me, Your grandpa's father used to say it long before we both were born. It's always been, it's always, this is next year country here. Every day of every spring in the early morning hours, calves are playing in the pasture, and the shadows from the rising sun will show. The corn is pushing up and peeking out. The pinto beans are pushing up, and the alfalfa's greening up. The winter wheat is waking up, and there's a promise and a hope. There's promise and a hope. There you go. That's not too bad. I wish I could play the banjo, though. It's kind of a fantasy of mine. I'm going to take a moment to tell you about, I sell these books after my show as a way to try to get gas money home. This is J. Kulm's pocketbook of cowboy poetry, and this is the second batch that I wrote. I've entitled this The Second Batch. These are $2.50 a piece, or 2 for $6. That's $14.95 Canadian. I do more of this stuff. How many remember me from Silverwood about 1992? Well, I'm pretty much doing the same poetry I was doing there 4 years ago. You were there, huh? Yeah. Is that you, Bob? I do a bunch of traditional poetry. I do some stuff. I'll just give you an overview of this. The oldest poem I know was written in the 1870s. It wasn't really written. It was probably made up by word of mouth and passed on. Because this is really an oral tradition, the cowboy poetry thing. The name of this poem is Hell in Texas. The devil, we're told, in hell was chained. 1,000 years he there remained. He never complained, nor did he groan, but determined to start a hell of his own, where he could torment the souls of men without being chained in a prison pen. So he asked the Lord if he had on hand anything left when he made the land. The Lord said, yes, I had plenty on hand, but I left it down in the Rio Grande. The fact is, old boy, the stuff is so poor, I don't think he could use it for hell anymore. So the devil went down to look at the truck, and he said if it came as a gift, he was stuck. For after examining careful and well, he determined the place was too dry for hell. So in order to get it off his hands, the Lord made a deal he'd water the lands, for he had some water, or rather some dregs, a regular cathartic that smelled like bad eggs. So the deal was done, and the deed was given, and the Lord went back to his home in heaven, and the devil said, I have all that is needed to make a good hell, and hence he succeeded. He began to put thorns on all the trees and mixed up the sand with millions of fleas. He scattered tarantulas along all the roads, put thorns on the cactus and horns on the toads. He lengthened the horns of the Texas steers and put an addition on the rabbit's ears. He put a little devil in the bronco steed and poisoned the feet of the centipede. The rattlesnake bites you, the scorpion stings, the mosquito delights you with buzzing wings. The sandburrs prevail, and so do the ants. And those who sit down need half soles in their pants. The devil had said that throughout the land he'd managed to keep up the devil's own brand, and all would be mavericks unless they bore the marks of bites and scratches and thorns by the score. The heat in the summer is 110, too hot for the devil and too hot for men. The wild boar roams through the black chaparral. It's a hell of a place he has for a hell. The red pepper grows on the banks of the brooks. The Mexicans use it in all they cook. Just try that cooking and you will shout, I've hell on the inside as well as the out. Hell in Texas. And get a little newer. In the 1880s, this one was written. Again, no one knows who wrote it, but it's the true story of a Texas outlaw. I was going to play the band with it. I'm almost scared off to try it. True story of a Texas outlaw who died in 1879, whose name was Sam Bass. There, I'm ready now. Are you doing homework while I'm up here talking? There, I can see your face now because of my banjo shines at you. I can check all of you guys out. There's a weird guy with glasses sitting next to a blonde girl. Don't know what she has to do with him. Oh, she's sitting next to the other guy. And there's her. Oh, back to what I was... this is just a little break for me. Find out who's out there. Can't see this side too well. Oh. You kind of look like an alternative rocker guy. I'll call you alternative rocker guy. Hi, how you? Sam Bass was born in Indiana. It was his native home, and at the age of 17, young Sam began to roam. He first went down to Texas, a cowboy bold to be, a kinder-hearted fellow you would scarcely ever see. Sam used to deal in race stock, had one called the Denton Mare. He watched her in scrub races, took her to the county fair, and she always won the money, no matter where she'd be. Sam always drank good liquor, and he spent his money free. Sam left the Collins Ranch in the merry month of May with a herd of Texas cattle, the Black Hills to see. Sold out in Custer City, and they all got on a spree, a harder lot of cowboys you would scarcely ever see. On the way back home to Texas, they robbed the UP train. They all split up in couples, and they started out again. They robbed the UP train. That enunciation was terrible there. Joe Collins and his partner were overtaken soon. With all their hard-earned money, they had to meet their doom. Sam made it back to Texas, all right side up with care, rode into the town of Denton, his gold with friends to share. Sam's life was short in Texas, count of robberies he'd do. He would rob the passenger coaches, the mail and express too. Sam had 4 bold companions, 4 bold and daring lads. Underwood and Joe Jackson, Bill Collins and Old Dad, and they were 4 of the hardest cowboys that Texas ever knew. They whooped the Texas Rangers and they ran the boys in blue. Jonas borrowed of Sam's money, and he did not wish to pay. The only way he saw to win was give poor Sam away. He turned traitor on his comrades. They were caught one early morn. What a scorching Jonas will get when Gabriel blows his horn. Sam met his fate in Round Rock on July the 21st. They peppered him with rifle balls, took away his purse. So Sam is a corpse in Round Rock, and Jonas is under the clay. And Joe Jackson's in the bushes trying to get away. That spotlight sure shows it when I spit a little bit, doesn't it? Really distracting to me. I'll have to quit that. We get a little newer now. I go up to 1906. There's a guy named Robert Service who was actually a prospector. He wasn't a cowboy, but prospector poetry, that's just like cowboy poetry. It's just that it's about prospecting. It's called My Friends. The man above was a murderer. The man below was a thief. And I lay there in the bunk between, ailing beyond belief. A weary armful of skin and bone, wasted in pain and grief. My feet were froze, and the lifeless toes were purple and green and gray. What little flesh there was in my bones you could punch in holes like clay. The skin on my gums was sullen black and slowly peeling away. I was surely in a direful fix, and I'll often wonder why they did not take the chance that was left and leave me there to die, or finish me off with a dose of dope, so utterly lost was I. But no, they brewed me the green spruce tea and nursed me like a child. And the homicide, he was good to me, and he bathed my sores and smiled. And the thief, he starved that I might be fed, and his eyes were kind and mild. Yet these were woefully wicked men, and often at night in pain I'd hear the murderer speak of his deed and dream of it over again. I'd hear the poor thief sorrowing for the dead self he had slain. I'll never forget that bitter dawn, so evil, askew, and gray, when they wrapped me round in the skins of beasts and bore me to a sleigh, and we started out with the nearest post 100 miles away. I'll never forget the trail they broke with tense, unuttered woe, and the crunch, crunch, crunch as their snowshoes sank through the crust of the hollow snow. And my breath would fail, and every beat of my heart was like a blow. And oftentimes I would die the death, yet waken to life anew. And the sun would be ablaze on the waste, and the sky a blighting blue, and the tears would rise from my snow-blind eyes and furrow my cheeks like dew. And the camps they made when our strength outplayed and the day was pinched and wan. And oh, the joy of that blessed halt, and how I did dread the dawn, and how I hated those weary men who rose and dragged me on. and how I pleaded to rest, the snow was so sweet a shroud, and how I cried as they urged me on, cried and cursed them out loud. Yet on they strained, all racked and pained, and sorely their backs were bowed. And then it all seemed like a lurid dream, and I prayed for a swift release from these ruthless men who would not leave me to die alone in peace, till I wakened up and I found myself at the post of the mounted police. And there was my friend the murderer, there was my friend the thief, with bracelets of steel around their wrists and wicked beyond belief. But when they come to God's judgment seat, may I be allowed the brief. My Friends by Robert Service. And the newer we get, the more they seem kind of like they're reminiscing about the past. Let's see, not Henry, I'll do Badger Clark. Badger Clark's one of the best known, and probably one of his better known poems was this one. It was published in 1915. It's called A Bad Half Hour. Wonder why I feel so restless. Moon is shining still and bright. Cattle all is resting easy, but I just can't sleep tonight. Ain't no cactus in my blankets. Don't know why they feel so hard, unless it's Warblin' Jim a-singing Annie Laurie out on guard. Annie Laurie, wish he'd quit it. Couldn't sleep now if I tried. Makes the night seem big and lonesome, and my throat feels sore inside. How my Annie used to sing it, and it sounded good and gay nights I drove her home from dances when the east was turning gray. Yes, her brow was like the snowdrift, and her eyes like quiet streams, and her face, I still can see it, much too frequent in my dreams. And her hand was soft and trembly that night underneath the tree when I couldn't help but tell her she was all the world to me. But her folks said I was shiftless, wild, unsettled. They was right. For I leaned to punchin' cattle, and I'm at it still tonight. And she married young Doc Wilkins. Oh, my Lord, but that was hard. Wish that fool would quit his singing Annie Laurie out on guard. Oh, I just can't stand it, thinking of the things that happened then. Good old times and all the past me never seem to come again. My turn? Sure, I'll come a-running. Warm me up some coffee, pard. I'll stop that Jim from singing Annie Laurie out on guard. That's it. I just keep getting newer and newer. I don't do any poems by people who are still alive. It's kind of a policy of mine. They got to pass on before I'll do their poetry. So I'm kind of waiting for a couple of them to kick off lately. But this one's pretty good from 1920, and my favorite cowboy poet was Henry Herbert Nibbs, and this is my favorite of his poems. Oh, I have builded me a home, and yet my heart is wayward still and wanders far among the goodly fellows I have met by sun and star, by campfires in the land of little rain, by river courses shrinking in the heat, by mountain meadow, valley trail, or plain where wanderers meet. Oh, ever restless and forever young in our impetuous adventuring, impatient as the older songs were sung, new songs to sing. Homeless, perchance, and yet we had the sky, a roof tree wide and fair, a place to sleep, made clean and fragrant as the winds went by from steep to steep. And little was a feast when smiling June danced o'er the mesa decked with sun and flower, where dreaming we grew silent with the noon gods of the hour. Our hopes were ours and by no other heard. Our joys were rugged and our quarrels swift, sunk with conclusive action or a word and set adrift. And this was when the West was in its dawn, and this was when the range was far and free. The trails are overgrown, the boys are gone who rode with me. My heart is wayward still and yearns to roam among the goodly fellows I have met. I left the trail and builded me a home, and yet, I'll do one more traditional one. It's one of my favorites, but it's not really a poem, it's a song, and you've all heard it before, but I like it because it has kind of a Twilight Zone ending. It's called the Cowboy's Lament. This is the dying Cowboy's Lament, which is different than the Laredo Cowboy's Lament. So you don't get confused, you know. Bury me not on the lone prairie. These words came low and mournfully from the pallid lips of a youth who lay on his dying bed at the break of day. He thought of his home and his loved ones nigh as the cowboys gathered to see him die. He wailed in pain as o'er his brow death shadows fast were gathering now. It matters not, so I've been told, where the body lies when it grows cold, but carry out this wish for me, and bury me not on the lone prairie. Here's the surprise ending. Oh, bury me not, and his words failed there. We paid no heed to his dying prayer. In a narrow grave, just 6 by 3, we buried him there on the lone prairie. Aren't those a bunch of depressing old poems? Back to my rhyming jokes now. I'll tell you a story. So these guys in Seattle started finding out about this cowboy poetry, and so I've been getting invited to read my poetry at alternative rock clubs in downtown Seattle. And I fit in there really good. No, actually they liked me there, but then they got me into Lollapalooza, which was not where I belonged at all. They said it's a celebration of all our differences, but everybody had tattoos and funny colored hair and body piercings, and I was the most different person there, I think. No, it was good. It was good on my resume, but they introduced me. So I'm like, I go up there, and then we got this like small stage to the side, and then there's the big main stage, and I got on stage, and just as I was opening my mouth, Green Day started playing. And Green Day is like this big band, like everybody wanted to see. So I opened my mouth and saw like 100 kids with orange hair running away from me. I'd like to apologize if I've offended any young kid with orange hair here, but anyway, when you go to these readings in Seattle, they do the non-rhyming poetry. You do a cowboy poet, there's 2 kinds of poetry, rhyming poetry and non-rhyming poetry, and they do the non-rhyming stuff. So I wrote some stuff like they have. And then another thing they do is they read it instead of memorizing it, which is kind of a good idea, because then if it turns out the poem is no good, you didn't waste your time. I haven't wasted my time, I hope. I'm going to do 4 poems. And don't even bother applauding until after the 4th one, and then applaud real good or you'll hurt my feelings. See, I do have hair. That's better. Where grass grows greenest. The grass sure grows green in the pasture around that fence post where the hired man lost his leg. He knew about augers on post hole diggers. An auger never cares who you are. I don't know how anyone could get into that kind of trouble, but if anyone could, he'd be the one. The grass carried the blood stain for days, and the flies swarmed on the sticky, dark patch where the hired man dug his last post hole. He was settled into the hospital when we stuck a railroad tie into the hole and finished his job. The grass sure grows green there. These aren't for everyone. A stupid thing to do. I should have seen it. That's what people say about their accidents. It was just a stupid thing. I should have seen it. That's what the neighbor said when he sliced himself with a sickle. A sickle on a harvester is long. This one was 18 feet. The shelf in the neighbor's shed is only 16 feet. So it hung off the end into the doorway, just level to your eyes. Walking into it was just a stupid thing to do. He should have seen it. He doesn't see anything anymore. He's no good. Wait, I don't do that one. No. They never did thank me. There's an old man in Waterville, a big man with enormous hands. His hands are gnarled and twisted, and the skin is lined with scars, but those hands are strong. That rancher's hands are such a curiosity, I don't even remember his face. I remember asking him, "How did your hands get those scars?" And he explained, "I was driving along the highway, and I came onto a car accident. The car was burning, and there was a couple inside, a man and a woman. I pulled them out of the fire, and that's how I got these burn scars. They never did thank me." Watching his hands while he said it, I was caught up in the story, and I looked up to his face and asked him, "Why didn't they thank you?" He said, "Well, they didn't make it." I should end this story here, but I see these hands and these scars, and how can I live without understanding what does this mean? I see so many scars, and each scar is a testimony of suffering, and it's right there to see. I think the scars we have on our skin come to us to match the scars we already have inside on our souls. Scars are beautiful like that, especially the scars on that rancher's hands. I take walks at night. I take walks at night under the stars. And those stars out over the farm away from the city are sure bright where the night is darker. I take walks at night on the farm because it feels like a place where people listen, where someone listens, someone like the universe, or the collective consciousness, or God. And I ask the same question over and over. I ask, why is it so hard? Life, I mean, I'm talking about life when I ask, why is it so hard? Life. And I lost my place. Just one time I got an answer. I was all tied up with knots inside, knots of regret and frustration and giving up type knots in my gut, and I looked up and I groaned, why is it so hard? And I swear I heard a voice say, "You're opening it from the wrong end." I don't know what that means. I just like taking walks at night, and that's my last one. I got into a farm accident one time. See, I got my foot caught in a lawnmower. It was an Evinrude. Do they make lawnmowers? I almost lost my big toe, which would have been a tragedy, because then I'd never be able to wear thongs. They'd fall right off. I had a great doctor. He sewed it back on as good as new. The scar hardly shows, and I don't really mind that he put it on upside down. Except for the clicking noise when I walk down the hall. Wakes up my dog. I had to have surgery after surgery. I finally said, "Doc, why can't you get it all over with in one surgery?" He goes, "You got something the other guys don't have, Jay. You got insurance." He did not ask for my advice, but I'll tell you what I said to the man I saw fall off his horse and land upon his head. I told him everybody falls from something now and then. The difference is that some of them can't wait to try again. And that's what makes a horseman. They love it is what they do. They live it and they breathe it. It's inside them through and through. He said, if you feel that way, you can ride that wild wreck. I told the man, forget it, that crazy stud could break your neck. Quick, answer the phone, doctor. He's either a doctor or a drug dealer. Where was I? This reminds me of a singer who froze up while in a show. She was on a stage with open mouth, but words just wouldn't go. I've had shows like that myself, but I've learned you'll be just fine if you learn to love the battle, to love the moment, even if you lose your lines, like I constantly do. When an audience is kind of tough and one member is a jerk, smile and laugh and tell the crowd, you sure can make me work. Tell yourself to love the moment, love the pain, love the war. When life throws you fiery darts, laugh and yell out, give me more. I love to ride the horses, though you'd wonder if I should. And I love to work on stages, and I like to think I'm good. Life's a lot like riding horses, 'cause no matter what you do, you're only good if you love to ride, and you love to fall off, too. Still here. I'm almost out of time, aren't I? Shoot. Well, I've been doing a few shows in Southern California. I wrote a poem about my trip to Southern California. I've entitled this poem. Good, you're still with me. I went for a ride down Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills, California. I found out you won't see a rodeo there, so I wrote out this poem to warn ya. Warn ya. The reason this place called Rodeo Drive is not where a rodeo would be is because of the animal rights activists. They'd set all the livestock free. Now you can't have livestock in Beverly Hills like cattle or horses or goats, because Beverly Hills people get downright mad when they see living things in fur coats. There's a doctor who's living in Beverly Hills. As doctors go, he is the best. This doctor believes he can best serve mankind putting silicone bags in your chest. There's a man selling maps to the homes of the stars. I don't care how far the stars roam. An actor must be pretty stupid if he needs a map to find his way home. Then I went over to Hollywood to see what the fuss was about. The unemployed actors are moving to there. The rich ones are all moving out. The rich ones are up in Montana, buying any old ranch they can find. I don't think those actors should buy all the land, but I wish they would come and buy mine. Some guy, last show I did, this guy came up and said, do you tune the banjo flat on purpose for the comic effect? I said, yeah, okay. Well, I'm about through here. I guess I need to do a little question-answer thing at the end, and that'll be fun, I guess. I do this. There's a lot of funny little attitudes among cowboy poets. I know some guys who say every cowboy poet should only write rhyming poetry because that's the tradition, you know. But the fact is, when cowboy poetry first started, that's about all the only kind of poetry there was, other than a few guys who were really oddballs. Unlike me. And Whitman, you know, he was breaking new ground. But I think every style is accessible, but it is a cultural expression, and so we try to express the culture, and that's why sometimes I wonder if I'm still in touch with it with my ground all in this CRP program with the government, but I'm rambling. I'll go on and do something. I have a friend from Texas who constantly complains the towns up in the great Northwest have funny-sounding names like Puyallup, Okanagan, Skamakaway, Scappoose, Lillywops, Dahican, Kooskia, or just Coos. There's Issaquah, Enumclaw, Multnomah, Mukilteo, Bannock, Blackfoot, Nez Perce, Shoshone, and Coquille, Tenino and Tenasket, Toppenish, Tukwila, Tillamook, Tacoma, Pocatello, and Chewelah. Since my people came from Russia, it's a little strange that, for we their offspring feel at home in towns like Klickitat, or Camas, or Cathlamet, Kootenai, Kittitas, Clackamas, Cowlitz, Klamath, Pulatsapor, Kitsap. There's Kalama, and there's Klallam, Quilicene and Clealum, Yahawks and Yankala, Yakima and Yellum. This is a song about Northwest town names, alternative guy. Seekusila, Skagit, Stillicum, Umatilla, Skycomish, Nahomish, Squamish, Snoqualmie, and Skamania. Kenneth people baptized here stay orthodox and unaffected in a land with petroglyphs and totem poles connected, pretending to a culture of a world they once were from, making use of native names like Wapato and Wanapum, Chelan and Chiloquin, Chinook and Walla Walla, Chehalis and Palouse, Pashastan and Molalla. It's hard to get up that high. Seekusila, Skagit, Stillicum, Umatilla, Skycomish, Nahomish, Squamish, Snoqualmie, and Skamania. We adopted tribal titles, though I'll never figure why. Names most people mispronounce, like this one, Klatskanai. And two more native villages, I'll name them if I can, these little northwest places, Seattle and Spokane. My friend from Texas had a point, those names are strange, I know. But then we never named a town a name like Laredo. Up somehow, but I can't think of how I did. I'd like to see someone steal that one from me. I'm going to do one more poem and then one more attempt at playing a banjo song, and then I'm going to call it good. I'd like to thank you all for having me here at wherever I am now at 9 in the morning. I'd like to thank you all for getting out of bed and coming here this early in the morning. I said something stupid just the other day to a man I know out at the sale yard. This man, he had a son who, well, he passed away, and the father took it really kind of hard. What I said was, see, the old man smiled when he saw me, and he asked me, hey there, tell me, how's the wife? I said, fine, and did you know she's going to have a kid? And then he got so cold, I thought he'd lost his life. He just looked down at the floor. He wouldn't look at me. Staring at his calloused hands is all he did. And he whispered to me roughly while he shook his weathered head, why would anybody want to have a kid? He said, they always run around. You don't know what they're doing. They never listen. No, they got no sense. You don't know if they're safe. I mean, they keep you up at night like a calf that keeps on breaking through the fence. And I'll tell you now, I knew his son, and he was such a good kid. He was not afraid of work, I'd have to say. Out at the sale yard, he would ride this buckskin mare. She don't get rode much since he passed away. He was outside moving hand lines on this hilly piece of land where the power lines hang closely to the ground. He hit the power line with the irrigation pipe, and that's the place the fellow's body soon was found. And why would anybody want to have a kid, the father whispered. I guess the boy's death came as quite a blow. But he smiled peacefully, and he said before he left, when you have your kid, stop in and say hello. There's a traditional American folk tune, one you might recognize. Hills, that is. You know the words. Swimming pools. Now everyone together. Swimming pools, movie stars.